Hi guys. Hi Justin. Hi
Hello.
Norman.
Hi.
Hi Atrav. So,
Hi.
I said correctly, right? Atrav.
Atharv.
Atar. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, cool. So, welcome to our after talk, which is obviously
Thank you.
after our talks. So, and we will be talking. So, yeah, I know. So yeah, guys. Thank you for your presentations. It was really nice. Yeah. I mean,
Thanks.
Thank you for having us.
I try to catch it everything, but I need to get up to my children just to make them sleep and not scream. So, but I will definitely like replay it again after when I will be editing it. So anyway, so
Yeah.
okay, cool.
I'm sympathetic to that. I have to do that all the time. My kids are sleeping right now. They might wake up and right in the middle of this. Who knows?
Yeah. Actually, I lost my keys for the door, so I cannot lock myself in. So it's possible that they will be here also. Oh, perfect. So how are you guys doing?
Sorry for that.
Pretty good.
It's actually, yeah, I'm doing good. It's actually almost midnight here. So really tired, but yeah, otherwise doing great.
Yeah, perfect. And how is your situation? How is the situation, Justin, in US? Is it okay there or?
Yeah, it's fine. I think we avoided most of the like bad stuff here in Charlottesville.
Yeah.
And in general, everybody's just staying at home. It's kind of boring, but
Yeah.
I will say we have a surprising number of people just out in the general in our country who think it's really cool to not take this stuff seriously.
Oh yeah.
And that's kind of frustrating. But
that's part of having a president who also thinks it's cool to not think about it seriously.
that's part of it. That is a big part of it right there. Yep.
May I ask, as a not so good in geography, which part of is Charlottesville? Which part of the US?
So we are like probably an hour and a half south of Washington, D.C. So right in the middle of Virginia.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. Although I grew up in I lived for 10 years when I was a kid in Lörrach in southern Germany. So I'm not.
That's why also the name, right? Thought already it would be a German name.
It is a German name. Yeah, all my family is German, but I don't speak any German. Not a lick.
Yeah, same for me, and I'm living here for 4 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What's your native language?
Czech Republic.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I'm not going to dabble with that language. That one's hard.
Yeah. It's really hard when you are working in like in English company. You don't have like kind of pressure to learn German, and also like, I mean, in Berlin you can sometimes like use, most of the time you can use the English. Most of the time.
Okay.
Yeah. I know many people actually who are working in Berlin in some English companies and just don't speak any word German since years. It's a common thing.
Yeah.
Also, most of the official, like the state offices, most of them can either deal with it if you speak English, or your company deals with it with them for you. So.
Yeah. And how is Atra? Sorry.
Atharv.
I mean, we
can.
can.
See, that's why I said I'm not even trying.
Yeah, we can. Yeah. We can try like my name's like the name game, but maybe later. Yeah. And how is you are in India, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. How is it there?
The situation is not as good here. We have just taken over, I guess. Like we are nearing US in case of daily cases. I think we have surpassed US in that as well. Yesterday we had about 91,000 cases, here in India. The death rate is pretty low, so that's working for us. But otherwise, the situation is really worse. One of the things is that we have a huge population, about 1.3 billion. So we do have to take that into factor when we are taking the number of cases, because if we are testing that much, then obviously there will be a lot of cases. So community-wise, the government still isn't admitting that it's on the community spread stage, because compared to the population, about 3.6 million cases aren't that much. So on that front, we are okay, but I think the situation is not that way. People still aren't following the social distancing norms. So there had been some religious parties, and there have been some gatherings all around. Politicians are using this play a lot to get the votes from poor people. So they have been organizing buffets and inviting people to eat and pray. So that sort of situation has really worsened things for us. But yeah, life goes on.
And Justin, how is the business? Like for you, you have like digital agency, right? You said.
That's right. Yeah. Surprisingly, it's going pretty well. Yeah. It's hard to know, like, do you contribute that to COVID or not? But I'd say in general, we've probably seen a slight uptick in business overall, which is, positive. So I don't know, like, we're pretty young business. We're only 3 years. So it could just be like, the business is growing and doing well, or it could have something to do with the current situation. I really don't know. It's not dramatic either way. It's not like all of a sudden people are coming out of the woodwork to have stuff, be built or anything.
Did you have this sudden moment of complete silence and project cancellations in the beginning? Because that's what we had.
No, we didn't actually. So yeah, right in the beginning, at the very beginning when everything was starting, we probably actually saw a bigger uptick right in that moment. In fact, I think there was only one project that got canceled. And it came back pretty quickly after that too. So yeah, I'm not exactly sure what the reasons are. But overall, life's been okay. I'm thankful for that.
Great. That's great. It was a bit different here, I think. So I'm working actually for a very similar setting. So it's a consultancy though. It's not an agency, but also about programming, digital consultancy. And we had just like a steep decline in projects right at the beginning. Everyone was canceling everything and everyone was saying we don't know and so on and so forth. But after a month, roughly, things settled rather fast, and now we are all up again and everything is kind of normal and even a bit better. But that, I don't know. Yeah, same. We don't know if it's COVID or if it's just running well.
Yeah.
And Atharva, how is your freelance? You are a freelancer?
Yeah, I'm a freelancer. Yeah. So clients have been more or less the same as last year. Usually, whenever I'm like looking for gigs, the number of contacts spike up during July to November, and then they slow down till next year April, and then they pick up. So this year, what happened due to COVID? Contacts really slowed down from February to March, and then from April, work really started popping. Big companies really weren't hiring, so it was usually small pop-up shops, restaurants that were looking to make business during this COVID time, and mostly that. So yeah, most of my clients are from the US and UK, and the situation over there was pretty bad during that time. So most of my projects got affected because of that. But apart from that, it has been more or less the same as last year.
Yeah, so basically, I'm the only one who is working at in the full-time job.
Yeah.
So
I guess Norman was also in A2B engineering.
Yeah, he worked there. Yeah. It's
I used to,
ancient history, basically.
It's like 2 years.
3 almost.
3 years. 3 years.
Yeah.
3 years.
Yeah.
3 years.
Yeah. We right now working for we have the short time this Kurzarbeit thing, and we basically from the 1st September we are back on the 45% of normal work, but still as we are basically doing we are in the tourism and this kind of travel industry, it hit us pretty hard. So it's really it's starting to go up, but it will take some time to recover. So, I mean, we are still alive, like as a company, and hopefully, yeah, as like we are like more focused on the like the ground travel, like trains, buses, and like this. So this like goes first. Like the planes are like really bad, like behind. So and like in the region, like in the European region, like the trains and buses like really starting to be like normal as before. So yeah. But still, it's kind of it sucks kind of because you kind of lose the kind of contact with the people and with the projects like inside the company, kind of, right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, well, last half year it's almost half year, right?
Yeah.
March.
Almost.
Yeah. Like we started working like March and April like for just 20%, so it was like 8 hours a week. So you kind of started to missing the work actually.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
and the other side, if you want to start to do like freelancing or something like that, it wasn't like really good time to start freelancing. Like,
Yeah.
so
Not really.
you basically just are home and with kids.
Yeah.
Which is fine for like first month. and then after that it's starting to be really
Oh man,
annoying.
that's crazy. That's the worst part of this whole thing is just having to be home all the time. I'm in my basement right now. It's
yeah.
I miss human beings for sure.
Actually, this time actually had a lot of impact on my productivity. So initially, when the thing started, we were all at home. I was like, I have so much time to do a lot of stuff. I'm not traveling anymore and not going anywhere. So let's learn something. Let's build some cool projects. Maybe start a new company. All of those crazy ideas. And I was like, okay, let's do that. And what happened usually was I was procrastinating a lot, and that habit sort of built into me. So like for the past month or so, I have been working really low, about like the same as what you were in the initially. So yeah, but one of the benefits of freelancing or contracting is that I control the number of hours I work and the work that I do. So I can maybe take some time off or slow down for a while and then pick up once again when I am okay with that.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good opportunity.
I know that feeling because I also like. I mean, I started some projects and I'm working on something like new. I use Next for the first time and Tailwind and like with the Strappy as a backend, like so it's really nice, and it's like kind of like it's fixed, like fit together, this kind of like free fit. So it's really nice to use that. But then like you have like, oh, Doom Eternal is on, let's try it. or like Death Stranding is live, it's on PC, so let's try it. And like yeah. So it's sometimes really hard to concentrate for the work.
Yeah.
I mean, even like if I'm living in the apartment, like it's like 65 square meters, so it's not like, it's like 3 bedrooms. So with 3 kids, it's not you cannot escape, kind of.
Yeah.
Nope.
I also started playing a lot of games. So yeah,
I
Valorant
just
was
started 50,000 side projects as usual.
Yeah.
I've
been playing a lot of CS:GO and Valorant. Yeah.
Justin, what was your like motivation to start Vue Formulate? Why did you start it?
Yeah, good question. Okay, so there's actually another package out there, which is now renamed Vue Formulate Legacy, which technically was public, but it was not publicized or anything. And its entire purpose was to get form data into Vuex. So I wanted people to be able to type into a form, and the Vuex store would just magically populate with the form. It was going to be great. Built it, and we used it on several sites in production, and then kind of like realized over time that my least favorite part of the library was the Vuex part of it. I mean, I like Vuex, but the reason we kept grabbing for it was because it came with all of these inputs kind of out of the box, you know, and the API for composing the forms was so nice. The annoying part was that you had to wire it up to Vuex. So I just kind of started thinking to myself, like, surely other people are frustrated by the form experience and just the amount of repetition that goes into building these things. And I really don't want to talk bad about any of the libraries that are pre-existing, but I also did not find a home for myself in like Viewfeed or Viewlidate or any of these other libraries because I didn't want all the other stuff that came with them. And I didn't find a home on the like smaller package side, so like Vlidate Vvalidate or Viewlidate. Like those are great validation libraries, but I wanted a cleaner API to compose with. And so I decided, why don't I rip the form, the good things out of this early version and just create, you know, a completely reimagined 2.0 with Vue Formulate and still have all the validation and everything. So that way it is the easiest way I could imagine to build forms. And so, yeah, I built that out during the course of, you know, a project I was working on. And I published it, yeah, I can't remember exactly when it was. It was early March, I think. And it was just like I wrote up some docs and answered my maintainer. Sorry, what's that, Norman? You're a little frozen there, Norman. It's a good look for him though. That's all right. I'll keep going. Maybe he can bounce back in.
Yeah. You can.
Yeah. So I published it and wrote up some early docs, and Andrew like read through them and helped edit them a little bit, and posted it up there, kind of like not thinking much about it. And he went over to like the Vue.js Reddit subreddit and just like posted a link to it on there. And people started like getting really excited about it. We were kind of shocked, you know. I think the two-way model binding on the form was maybe like a pretty innovative idea that got people excited, that you could write back into your form at a kind of almost a global level. And so, it started picking up some traction. And at that point, we thought, well, maybe we should like flesh this out and actually add like the features that we want to have in here. And so over the next couple of months, we pushed out a lot of version bumps and added pretty much all of the like important features that we wanted to have early on. We still have a giant backlog of really cool stuff we want to do to it. But, you know, in that early phase, I think the idea started to prove itself out that this is a good way to build forms, kind of component first and whatnot. So, yeah, I mean, that was the genesis.
So, Justin, one of the things I noticed when using Vue Formulate, and you talked about this right now as well, that it has two-way winding, but the inputs, they don't really have any data unless and until you start typing to them. So if there's an input, like two inputs, they won't even have any keys inside the model object unless and until I start typing to them and put some data inside of that. And one of the issues that I ran into with that was when I was copying some data from the API and just providing that to the model object, it couldn't detect the inputs. So the password would say the confirmation does not match, even when I wasn't providing it any input at all. And we talked about that on Discord as well. So one of the ideas was to provide it two empty keys that had the name of the inputs, and that would make sure that the inputs are actually empty and not validate them over again. So
yeah,
I was curious, like why that decision was made to not include the keys when the inputs are being iterated.
So there's a couple reasons why. One is we don't know the type of data that's going to be coming out of an input. Like if you think about it holistically, we don't know. So you might have like a text field, the default is going to be an empty string, but that's not always the case. And so we need to make sure if we're going to mutate the global object that we're mutating it with the right type of data. Because you could create a custom input and the data type that gets pushed back could be, you know, an actual number, like a proper JavaScript number or some sort of an object. Like groups is an example of that, right? So like if you have an empty group, we don't initialize the key. And so once you start typing, the group is able to dictate to the form, I am, you know, an array with an object inside of me. It does have some downsides. The other positive is it means we don't ever mutate the object, or we try really hard not to. We don't try not to ever mutate the object when a form loads. So if you have an initial form object,
yeah,
you want to populate the form with that form object without modifying it at all. And if you have some keys in there, it's going to push those back up into the initial object.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah, so it is a little bit. I mean, like the password is one where it's like,
yeah,
it's kind of an edge case that makes sense. So, you know, I would slap a required on one of those and then make the validation fail or something like that in order to make that user experience better. Yeah.
Yeah, and like it does make sense. Like if you were to, if the forms would have to have some state, empty state, and what if the API was pulling it from the somewhere else, and you have the data and the mutation is done on the object, so that data is all gone. And now what do you do about that? So in that cases, this sort of implementation actually makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense, but there is a use case where you would want it to pre-populate an object. I mean, what we could do there, I suppose, is have a flag on the input that says, like, push an initial value back up or something.
Yeah. But, like, would it be convenient to implement that sort of thing? And would it actually make sense for most of the users? Because when someone is populating data initially, why would they want to repopulate it from the API? And, like, if they were just using populate data, they would just use the API data, not have the form populate it for them. So in that case, I don't really think it makes sense. And if like someone wants to populate the model, they can always provide an empty string or something like that with the data, the value, and that could also pre-populate the form and work the same way as you would want to.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Yep.
That is how I solved my edge case. Basically providing it empty strings, and that would make sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm back, by the way. Yay. I'm happy that I didn't have to reconnect and make Jiří mad. I actually had a question. I wanted to... Oh, yeah, right. What is Braid actually doing? Is there any specialization of the projects you're doing?
So we're an agency, but I think we're a little bit different because we're all engineers.
Nice. Good stuff.
So yeah, it's kind of a different, I mean, I've been part of other agencies, and every agency I've ever been a part of, the top structure is design or art direction. And it's kind of like design is top heavy down. So what we wanted to do was create an agency that was engineering first, but not just an engineering shop. So there's a lot of companies out there that are just a collection of engineers, and they'll subcontract for other people and you know, create whatever those people need. You know, you contact them and say, hey, you know, we're building this app. We need you to do the engineering for the back end or something like that. But we actually think the design is like super important. maybe the most important feature. Like in a way, like the engineering just has to work, but the design is what's going to actually sell the product. So we wanted to value design as part of what we do, but also in the life cycle of a project, the design is like, it is like a tiny sliver of the project. It is such a small piece compared to the amount of work that happens when you're actually engineering. So what we decided to do is just, have a bunch of, really badass engineers and outsource our design. And then here's another like little truism that we found is the best engineers in the world are usually employed by companies, right? Not always, but usually. So like Facebook, for example, can pay $300,000-$400,000 a year for an engineer.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people go work at companies like that. And the same is not true for design. So the best designers in the world are frequently freelancers. Right? So
clearly not at Facebook.
But really, like a lot of the best designers that you're going to run across they're doing their own things, running their own agencies or just freelancing or whatever. And so agencies can't tap into them because they've hired their own designers that they need to use, right? Otherwise, they don't make money on their. If they're paying people salaries and they're not using their design, that's bad. So we decided, let's not hire any designers. Let's go make relationships with all of the best designers we can find. And we'll outsource our design work to them, and then we'll do all of the engineering. And because the engineering is the long tail on the project, we'll actually be with our clients for much longer than the designer ever needs to be with our client. And amazingly, when we tell people that strategy, like when we tell clients that strategy, it resonates with them immediately. If they've ever been part of a build with an agency, they get that right away because they went through the process of going through this design implementation and then for a year or 2 years just interfacing with the developers. And sometimes, the developers are leaving in that cycle, they're going off and getting hired elsewhere or whatever, and they're kind of left with the bag. They've got a pretty design and really poor execution on the design. So we just want to go really high on the execution, really good engineering, but still have design be an important part. So that's kind of the idea for our company, for Braid. What that actually pans out to be is like we just build websites and really good web apps. But that's kind of what a lot of people in our space do, right?
Yeah. What is your like usual tech stack for the websites, web apps? So
if it's just like we use Vue.
Good.
Yeah, we use Vue.js mostly. If we can have our pick, which sometimes we can't, but if we can have our pick, we use Vue.js on the front end. We usually have a Nuxt stack running. And then some kind of back end. Frequently, it's Laravel, but not always. But we very rarely build anything with Laravel from a like we don't use Blade or any of the back end rendering. We just use it as an API basically. Yeah. But Laravel is it's really nice because it lets you scaffold an API so quickly, and kind of have all of your requests and validations and things like that much quicker than I've ever found on a Node backend, where you have to pick the pieces and parts. You have to decide like I want this body parser with this validator, with this server, and I'm going to cobble it all together. And those decisions, like every time I start building a backend with Node, I spend at least a day or 2 days of my time deciding which of the tools I'm going to use, because since the last time I've done it, the world has evolved, and now there's Koa and there's Sales, and I've got to like reevaluate which is the right tool for me to use. So.
Matthias just wrote in the chat that Ruby on Rails is also that's very true. So
yeah.
Laravel Ruby on Rails or Django, all those full-fledged frameworks are definitely very good.
I agree. I'm using like for backend like also Rails, but not like the thing is that you can use like just like Rails like for API without the rendering the stuff. So it's really
exactly.
And it's really easy also like the scaffold API. It's like, and you have everything set up like in, I don't know, 1 hour you have basically functional API.
Yeah.
So it's
that's pretty great. And there are really, really good battle test libraries for all those frameworks.
Yeah.
Especially around authentication and stuff, which is usually the hardest part, right?
Yeah.
I had another question in mind, but forgot about it when we started talking about frameworks. Maybe it comes back.
Atharva, what is your framework stack of choice?
My framework stack of choice?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I usually work with Vue mostly. Whenever I'm like contracting, I actually don't work like how most freelancers do. I will usually work for a longer term, for let's say 12 to 18 months on a single project with an engineering team. So I would usually lead the front-end whole aspect. I would hire developers who would be juniors to me, mentor them so that they can take on the project after I leave. And I'll usually work with designers who are either full-time employees of the company or other freelancers. And usually there's a backend team already set up. So I'm working with organizations that have really solid backends, but haven't really improved on their front-end experience. So because of that, they lose on a lot of conversions because UX really needs to be tweaked for the optimal user cognitive behavior, so that the user, where the user is going to click when you have the call to action button. And you also need to track all of that to make products that scale and have high engagement, because that really translates to dollars and dollars from it. So anyways, that's what my mindset when I go into working on something, and I get to get a free word on what to use or not to use. So most of the cases, it's single page applications built on Vue. I would earlier I used to use a lot of BEM styling, so I would write all my CSS by my own and put them into different classes and use them. It was nice. I guess Justin also tweeted about this once. When you're using your separate style sheets that are separate from your markup, it's really easy to switch the whole styling of the application without really worrying about what's where. So I can maybe swap the same thing for on the project and use that, just change the styling altogether, and would still work because I have the business logic all separate from the styling. So that was one of the great things. But then I started using Tailwind, and Tailwind really sped up the development process for me. So something that I would spit out maybe in 4 hours, I was able to do it in 1 hour with Tailwind, and that was a huge benefit for me. And then of course with Purge and for CSS, it was easy to control the build size of the CSS that I was outputting. So more often than not, my sites would score above 90, above 95, and in some cases even 100 when taking lighthouse scores. Because that is really a very important aspect for me, because each extra second that the user is spending on an application is decreasing your conversions by a huge margin. And if your conversions are decreasing, you're not doing something right. So it really helped me control my build size, control my CSS, and make sure that everything is being done in an optimized and a well-organized manner. So I started using Tailwind, and what I actually do is I still use style sheets with that. So if there are global styles, I would encapsulate them into further classes and use them. So in my example that I talked about in the previous talk, I was using text error class that encapsulates the text size, the color, and the opacity and emphasis all together in the single class, and I would use that everywhere that I want to. And I would maybe, in cases like when you're putting CSS in JavaScript, where you cannot really specify pseudo variants, and a string of class usually works. So what I would do is I would create a global string of classes, and I would just apply that everywhere that I want to. That was like what I was doing in case of modules in Vue Formulate as well. So when I have a schema and there is a lot of links, I'd have to repeat links somehow. So what I would do is just change the link string for that. So in addition for having the global classes, I would also append the link styles to the classes, and that would work automatically.
Mm.
So I do try to keep a separate approach from the markup as much as I can. But then some things that are encouraged to be in the markup that have to do. So text styles and modifications that are deviating from the global styling that have to go into the markup, and I usually put that. I'm really against putting styling in style blocks and scope styling, so I don't really do a lot of that. I avoid that as much as possible because I usually do chunk optimization. So most of my components and views are different chunks, and you have different CSS output as well when you are doing scope styling. So now two modules are being sent over, and that doesn't really look so nice to me. And when I build my projects, it's a lot of chunks, a lot of unrelated stuff, and CSS also blows up when you are using small modules. So if you have a relatively long file, it would be compressed better, and that would output in a nice way. But you have maybe 2 or 3 lines that is going to add up as a chunk, and you have some bad size issues as well. So that really, I hate that. So I stay away from that as much as possible.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Makes a lot of sense, I guess.
Yeah. And what do you guys think about Tailwind?
I just told you what I like it. It's amazing for me. I think Justin has a strong opinion against that. He has talked about that. So,
yeah, I kind of unabashedly tweeted about it not too long ago. I mean, I'm not opposed to Tailwind. I agree. It makes you go faster, which is really valuable, right? And so, you know, we have like a really big project that we're spinning up right now that's going to be going for the next, 9 months or something. And it has a big UI portion that's user end facing, and it has a big portion that's for the admin. And we're toying around with the idea of using Tailwind for the admin portion, just because there's so many screens to crank through, so many forms and stuff like that, that Tailwind would be a good fix there. And critically, it probably will never change. So to me, that's probably the thing that I don't know, I'm old school, I guess. Like I actually enjoy the concepts of CSS and the cascade, and trying to craft really good CSS that's alphabetical and just like good in every way and as reused in every way, but it's very time intensive and it's expensive to do. And the end result can be tremendous if you're willing to spend the time, but it does cost something in terms of mental overhead and time of execution. So the front end, the end user facing product, there's zero chance we will use Tailwind on that. And largely that's because that front end is going to be highly designed, right? We're going to make it literally pixel perfect to the design comps. In fact, Andrew has a little package called Vue Griddle, which allows us to do, like grid layouts. And when we're building, we'll have Illustrator pulled. My hands got paint all over them. We'll have Illustrator pulled up with, or not Illustrator, like Figma or Sketch pulled up with the front end that we're building, and we will literally make sure it's not even 1 pixel off the design.
Okay.
And so when we go to that level of detail, things like Tailwind just don't make sense, right? But on the admin, where it's like I need a lot of form inputs, I don't really care if it's 13 or 14 pixels between them. Then we'll just allow it to cruise right through. So yeah, like I had a project last week, which is why I tweeted about this, where we had built this whole front end site 3 years ago. It was an e-commerce site built with Nuxt and Laravel as a back end, and it was completely from scratch. Like we built every shred of e-commerce on that thing. And it's a really cool site. It's done great for the client, good ROI and everything. And the client had this really cool idea of like, well, what could I have my store. Could I create sub-stores, almost like Shopify, for different brands and let them have like their own theme, but I still want to be able to use the same, page components in the CMS we built for them. Can I do that? And I was like, yeah, we can totally do that. We're literally just going to swap the style sheets, and it'll be a piece of cake. And as I'm going through the process of building that, I'm thinking about Tailwind, and I'm like, this would be insanity if I was trying to do this with Tailwind, right? If that front end was built with Tailwind, the amount of rework that would have to happen would be tremendous, like absolutely tremendous. But those use cases are very rare, and I admit that they're very, very rare. The number of times I actually have to do that is very, very low. And so I'm not at all opposed to people choosing that as a tool, which is why Vue Formulate supports it kind of as like a first-class citizen. Right? I literally wrote an article about how to use Tailwind and Vue Formulate. And so I'm not opposed to it. It's just not the way that I build front-end websites most of the time.
I so agree with you. But everything, basically, I would say. But because I'm a fan of Tailwind so far that it makes many things easier, especially easier to streamline. And then if you build up your classes and so on, you can basically replace that whole idea of creating a component just for styling. You just do that in CSS with Tailwind, which is really nice. But as soon as you have a not so standard design, it is so much better to really, really handcraft everything. And I'm also personally really not a fan of all those UI kits and everything. I'm really the one who's usually handcrafting everything as much as he can. Not alphabetically though. I have categories, but I'm sorting them as well. But yeah, so I totally agree with you with this. But I guess Tailwind is a very good tool for all those more or less standard layouts, and I guess 95% of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I definitely like for the administration, it might be really nice, and for like I use it for like small websites like press website, and you don't need anything like some like special UI or something like that. So you just need to basically style couple text, couple photos, and that's it. Like you don't need anything special. So it's really fast. And I'm kind of lazy. I don't like write CSS at all. And
lazy developer.
Yeah, that's weird, right? Yeah, so I mean, sometimes it's starting to like kind of bloating the code totally. Like that's the when you have lots of like the Tailwind styles and like this. But I mean, I'm getting used to it because it's kind of sometimes you have like bloated like template, but you don't have any styles. So it's.
You know what does make me excited though is, and I hope somebody out there does this. It is with Vue Formulate. The cool thing is like the class declarations. You can declare all of the classes for every input type in your configuration options. You don't have to. You can do it at an input by input level, but you can configure all of them in your configuration options.
That's nice.
And all of your configuration options can be overridden or applied with a plugin, which means if you're a Tailwind user, you could write Tailwind themes that are just like npm install, awesome dark mode theme for Vue Formulate, and just like one line plugin, and you've installed it for everything. So like that concept, I think, could be really, really cool if people pick it up and start running with it. That's like one area that I'd love to see Vue Formulate grow is, and like frankly, I'll probably have to lead the charge unless someone else picks it up, is writing plugins for it. Because there's new input types. Like one of the big advantages of using something like Vuefy and Vuetify is they have a lot of these synthetic elements. Autocompletes and tag lists and, all of that other kind of stuff. And those are really, really helpful because nobody ever wants to write them. They're such a pain to write. Such a pain to write. Oh, man.
That's so true.
Anyway.
Actually, about this particular use case, I have been working on a plugin what it does is like it takes in your Figma styling or Adobe XD styling, and it would output that as JSON or like directly to tailwind.config.js. So you have all your colors, your spacing utilities already predefined from your design file, and any changes of the design file can be synced to that particular Tailwind config. And one of the things that maybe could be added to that is we can pass those classes directly to Vue Formulate, and it would auto apply to all of the inputs. So in case I want to swap something out, I can directly just change into the design file, and that would update my schemas and all of my forms as well. And that is like one of the cool things that would suit this use case. Regarding like pixel perfect design, I love doing pixel perfect design, and I'm kind of an OCD about that. If a single pixel is off, it freaks me out. And what I usually do is when I'm working with design, I make sure that the designer is working on a standard grid, be it 16 pixels, 8 pixels, or even 4 pixels, whatever it is. It has to be standard, and I'll make my spacing utilities around that. So whatever config that Tailwind gives me, I override that with my spacing utilities. So when I'm writing in my markups, my styles are always pixel perfect and nothing goes here and there. And one of the benefits of this is like when I'm writing CSS by my own, if I change the spacing somewhere to be 24 pixels, and if I want to update that, I basically have to do a search and refactor to update it everywhere if I'm not using repetitive classes. In case of Tailwind, I would just change the config and it would auto apply everywhere, and I don't really have to worry about anything at all. And the Tailwind config itself is something that is really powerful for me. I get that a lot of people don't like for the styling aspect of it. Like it really cannot do complex animations and CSS stuff because it also lacks a lot of properties which are standard to CSS, and like filters. Tailwind doesn't support filters and maybe advanced gradient features. I think from 1.8.3 they have added gradients, but that's about it. There's still a lot of CSS properties that are still lacking and that we would love to see on Tailwind. But I override that anyways, and I extend the library so much that it's basically me creating my utilities for me, and I use them in each and every project. So once I've written them for one project, I can replicate them to the next one and the other one and the other one, and it just grows into a separate UI kit for me. And that advantage is huge.
Yeah,
that's also basically
from my
Tailwind,
point of view.
right?
Yeah.
No, that's. I think you're doing it right.
Yeah, that sounds like the right way to use something like that.
Yeah.
It's the
I've been using it about 1.5 years, so just got used to it.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely don't want anybody out there to think like I'm anti-Tailwind, because I'm not.
Okay, I think we could clarify that by now.
I'm just also anti-Tailwind. No, I'm not.
No, I totally see your point, really. It's also really, all these people who always jump on some specific technology and then just put it as the holy grail of whatever. We have this a lot, right? And all the time something new comes up, and then it's suddenly the new holy grail for everything and so on. And it just never was the case, right? It never was that one thing that is the best fit for everything. It was always some specific use case and so on. And just, I don't know if people will ever understand that, or if it will be always like this, or if you have to get old to understand that. I guess it's the last thing, but yeah, it's the same as Tailwind. It's really, really good for many things, but it's definitely not the holy grail of CSS, right?
Yeah.
For me, it is, but because I'm lazy and I don't. I'm just...
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Maybe, my man.
Yeah, just. I mean, for if I will do some like pixel perfect, I wouldn't use it like. But
yeah.
But I'm afraid because I'm not like this kind of obsessive of pixels, so, and I'm not designer, and so I'm just like simple engineer.
Just a simple man.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Will is asking on the chat if anyone tried Quasar. It never seems to get mentioned much, so.
I only read about it. I never used it.
How do you pronounce it? Is it Quasar or it's Quasar?
I have no idea.
It should be Quasar.
Quasar.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw one tutorial on that a few years ago, and the guy actually used a lot of bad practice on it. So I remember commenting on it. And one of the issues with
the website is horrible. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for interrupting, but the website has a background that is rotating, so you're just. Whoa! I'm sorry. Just go on.
Yeah. So I kind of went off on the framework that particular day, but I guess it has improved a lot now. Though I haven't really used the framework, and I don't really like these kind of frameworks because just like Justin said, I like to do things by my own hand. I like to build my own inputs, my own tables, everything by myself. Because when these things run into issues, you don't really want to end up debugging them and then contributing to their code base and then making sure that that gets fixed so that you can move forward. So yeah, in that case, I haven't really tried that, but it's interesting nevertheless.
I will say this to have a strong opinion. My opinion on Tailwind is wishy-washy. My opinion on material design is I don't like it. I just straight up do not like material design stuff. Not that Quasar is specifically material design, but I'm not a fan. I'm just not a fan of material design, period.
Yeah.
I think it's weird. I hate the little bubble thing when you click on it. I don't like it.
It's also breaking so many things and makes, yeah, I agree.
What is your opinion on
Beautify? Of Beautify?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, my number one gripe is that it's material design. Obviously, you can swap that up, but I think it's a solid framework.
Yeah.
I have not reached for it as often. If I have to reach for one of these frameworks, I usually end up going for Beautify. And the reason, it's just lower level, and it's basically just Bulma with some UI components. And of the Material UI, Bootstrap, all of those kind of pre-baked CSS-y things, that's the one that I kind of can stomach the most. That being said, I haven't used Tailwind UI yet, and I don't really know what's there, honestly. But that might be something I would check out. I don't know. Because I don't like Bootstrap at all. This is just, I'm talking personal preference here, right? I'm not saying anything bad about Bootstrapper people. I'm just not a fan. I'm not a fan of a lot of those things. And so the idea of using Tailwind to me is actually much more attractive than the idea of using something like Bootstrap. Because it's Bootstrap's not semantic anyway, so you might as well opt in for the power of something like Tailwind that's lower level if you're going to go for something to speed up your development. So yeah, if there was a good framework that was built on Tailwind for stuff, I probably would opt for that. But either way, all of them to me are only useful if you're building parts of an application that closed audiences see, right? That only admins are going to see, or only authorized logged in users are going to see, or something like that, because getting design language to conform to a pre-existing framework is incredibly hard. Right. And so that's one of the things about Viewformulate is I almost didn't want to write a default theme for it because I don't want people to be confused about it being the way that forms are supposed to look. It's supposed to not say anything about the way forms are supposed to look. The default theme is really just there to help you understand how things can look.
Yeah. One of the issues I had with Beautify was that it was bloated. Whenever I would build the project, sometimes Beautify would blow up to, let's say, 1.6 MBs, and that would really hurt a lot of performance for me. So bloated frameworks most of the time, Bootstrap, Beautify, I don't like them for that. Beautify is also very looking like be this, be that, be this, be that, and that really messes my brain up. And also like the amount of code that you're writing from Vuetify is more than what you would end up writing if you were to make something similar custom made, because it has all these attributes. If you want to even customize width and height, you have to use the prop for that. And what is the point of customizing width and height with JavaScript when you can do that with CSS? And like the design language that Vuetify follows, it's not that great to me, that appealing to me. So most often than not, like almost every time, I would end up destructuring the components, styling them with deep selectors when they would not work, and then making the thing work somehow. And then I have to stick with the grid to make things responsive for Vuetify. Then you would have spacing issues. So it was really difficult to build something quickly with Vuetify that was also pixel perfect and would also conform to the design that was specified to me. So it ended up being counterintuitive to what it was supposed to be. And so for those reasons, I didn't really stuck with that. And Vuetify is really nice. One of the reasons is because it's very light, but then it implements grid in a different way than the frameworks do. I guess it's used columns for everything. So that was a bit different for me. So for that reason, I didn't really use that also. So most of the time, I'm just using Tailwind, and that was fun.
By the way, I think behind Quasar is a bit more actually than just front-end framework, right? Or like CSS library and so on, because it also allows you to do these cross-platform, not exactly, but cordova apps and so on.
Yeah, it can package apps into different platforms.
Yeah, did anyone have experience with apps like this, doing like something Vue.js based on as a mobile app or whatever?
Yeah,
we launched some PWAs for Google Play Store. So it was basically packaging the PWA into like with Android Studio and give it to the Play Store. And similarly with Microsoft Store, so that worked out well for that. But then if you push something like that to the Apple App Store, they kick you out and it doesn't really work. So you have to use native components. Yeah, because they are very anti-web applications being used as native applications. So they don't really support a lot of features that you would have in an application, and suddenly everything would stop working. So that you have to keep that in mind. And with the IAP, you get really restricted to what kind of applications that you are selling. So if it's a food delivery application, that would work well. If it's an e-commerce application, you could get past IAP because there's an exclusion for that. But if you are selling a service, let's say it's a SaaS product, then that really gets tricky because you have to pay Apple's 30% commission, and that means that you have to do all of transactions throughout the application. So you have to rewrite all of that stuff again for Apple, and that really sucks.
Yeah, we have one that's going through the App Store right now, actually. It's already been out there. It's called Not Okay app. It's basically for, its tagline is, it's okay to be not okay. So it's like almost like a mental health kind of thing, and it's basically just a button that you push. This was a client of ours, not our idea. It's basically a button you push, and then it sends out a pre-programmed text message to like 5 trusted contacts. That's like, hey, here's my location. I'm not okay. And so the idea is, people who have like, some mental health concerns or something like that can pull the app out, hit a button. And not like, Apple already has something like that, but it calls the police. It's more like, I'm not feeling well for whatever reason. Please come help me.
Well, hi, officer. I just wanted to Coke. Sorry.
Yeah.
Wrong button. Oops.
So yeah, that one is done with Vue, and it's wrapped in Cordova, which is the worst thing ever. It's awful. Yeah. The whole.
Okay.
it's just terrible. I would never, if I was going to do it all over again, I would have never built it that way. Like, the only advantage is that you can have a single code base that's like web wrapped, and that is a big advantage, which is why a huge number of people do it. But
what makes it so horrible? I never used it, so I don't have any opinion.
Well, the ecosystem is very poor, and it's very confusing because Cordova is an open source project, but it's actually Adobe PhoneGap. So like Adobe Cordova, I think might be Apache sponsored or something, but like Adobe's PhoneGap application is kind of like weirdly the owner. So there's a PhoneGap CLI and there's a Cordova CLI, and the commands are basically exactly the same. So you're never quite sure, you know, what you should be running or what you shouldn't be running. And then all of the native features, it's really cool how they implement it. So like, let's say you want a native feature like a location or to send a push message or something like that. You do a Cordova, like Cordova is also like a package manager. So you do like a Cordova install push notifications or something like that. And they have plugins written for different native features, but a lot of the plugins are just like community sponsored. So like our app did in-app purchasing, and the ability to do in-app purchasing is somebody's GitHub out there, and there were problems with it, you know, and it's like, well, it's just not going to work, you know, like that whole feature set isn't going to work. So we'd have, you know, hundreds of lines of code just to like catch those like weird edge cases around things that weren't working.
Yeah.
It's super frustrating, and frankly, there's a lot of black magic if you're a web developer that happens between like where your Vue code is and compile builds. And if something happens on the compile side, like I've written some iOS apps in Swift, but I've never written anything in Android using, you know, Android Studio. And so if there's problems in the Android build, I just start Googling for answers, which feels really uncomfortable to me, you know. Yeah, I think if I was going to do it over again, I'd go with something like React Native.
There is native script I heard should be really like mitigating lots of those problems, but as you know, I'm just what other people said, so I have no idea.
Yeah, have you guys tried Vue Native though?
I'm sorry?
Have you guys tried Vue Native?
Vue Native, no, but is it alive? Again?
It's like basically a wrapper on React Native, I guess. I haven't tried that as well, but yeah, it does something something similar to React Native. Compiles down your code. You need to use Xcode to compile for the iOS version, and then you have to use certain UI components that are specific to the platforms. So yeah, like how React Native compiles on UI components to divs and to that Apple specific components, and then to Android specific components. Then you can just use them. It's something similar to that.
Am I right in thinking that it compiles to React Native or something like that?
Yeah. I guess it does. I'm not sure though. I haven't really
never heard of that, but I also never really read about the details. So
yeah,
that would be new to me though. But
I could be wrong. My impression the last time I looked at Vue Native was that you write it in Vue because you're a Vue developer. Yeah. It compiles it to React Native.
Yeah, it compiles to React Native.
Compiles it. So to me, you're just like one more step away from the actual.
So weird. I mean, I see why they are doing it. Totally.
I mean,
it's
I like
people writing programming languages. Yeah. Sure, yeah. You know, they write a programming language and that is compiling to C so that you don't have to do the hard work. I mean, nowadays there's LLVM, but yeah, I see why, but it sounds so strange to me. Like alien.
Have you tried WSM? Webassembly.
Sorry?
Yeah. Have you tried Webassembly?
No.
I haven't at all, but I really want to.
Yeah, there has been a lot of discussion over that on Reddit. I saw some people using Rust, but I haven't really tried that.
No, I understood about WebAssembly. I'm sorry, yes. Sorry.
Yes.
I also have a cat that is distracting me the whole time. It's really hard for me. So I actually work a lot with Rust if I can, but I didn't have anything paid for yet. Rust, unfortunately. So I would love to do more. The problem with WebAssembly things for now is that they get still pretty big. So you still have quite nothing compared to a usual single page application yet. So it's still okay. But you have a pretty big bunch of code just for like making it kind of work, especially if it's cross-compiled from Rust. Thank you. Please go. Finally. So I'm not sure how it would look in a bigger application. So you would have to try that, of course. So maybe the overhead is not as big then anymore. But
I heard Rust had the smallest application footprint compared to like compared to like what is it? There's a TypeScript version where you can write TypeScript.
Oh, that is possible. Yeah,
but it has a much bigger footprint, is my understanding. That Rust has one of the smallest footprints for WebAssembly.
Okay, so if that is the smallest one, then I guess it's just not getting much better than that. Then you will just have to live with like a 200-something kilobyte package to start with.
Wow.
Yeah, so I guess it's only for big applications then. Just like a simple hello world is easy 250 kilobytes or something. I'm not sure. I would have to check again, but that's what I remember when I tried it. I even hand-written some WebAssembly just to try it out, just to see. Of course, you're not getting anywhere with this. Like, don't even try to do something complex with that. But I wanted to try like some algorithm. I wanted to do some performance testing and see the differences. So I hand wrote it in WebAssembly. That took me ages, but was interesting at least. And I did it in Rust. The package size was like incredibly the difference, but the performance difference wasn't. There was basically no difference. So at least that is not a concern.
Interesting. Did you see a significant performance improvement using WebAssembly over just native JavaScript?
That it depends a lot on what you're doing. If you're doing it wrong, so especially if you communicate a lot forth and back, then it's getting much slower actually. Because this whole translation from JavaScript world into the WebAssembly world is super slow still. It might be better by now because they planned lots of performance optimizations in that. But back then, which is like half a year ago, it's not really long ago, it was super slow. So if I wrote an algorithm that would do each iteration to communicate back the result already, then it would be extremely slow compared to JavaScript, as in like 20 times slower or something. But if you would just put the whole loop and everything into WebAssembly and do everything there, it would be like 2-3 times faster than JavaScript, maybe. So yeah, and was some noise generation thingy, like Berlin noise or something. So it was rather complex math. So it should be a good indicator. If you're doing like purely numerical stuff, it should be fast if you do it right.
Interesting. Yeah, I want to have a good use case and give it a shot sometime.
Yeah, same here. But let's see if it comes one day. I'm totally digging frameworks in Rust for now, like web frameworks. They go really, really well in the right direction for now, I think. But there's so much more to do before it is really useful. So let's see, one day. I would love to have something like that looks like Vue.js, like you write an actual template and have some Rust code in a block, and then maybe some CSS, like single file components from Vue.js. That would be awesome. Nope, nothing there, and I neither have the experience in Rust nor the time or mental energy to write something like this, or to even know if it's possible. So I don't know, but that would be my non plus ultra, let's say. Jiří, did you have any experience with WebAssembly? No, right?
No.
Did you do anything from ADB maybe?
No, I don't think so. Maybe No. No.
No. Okay.
No. I mean, I tried not Rust, but like I played with Deno, which is based on Rust, and it's
written in Rust. Yeah.
Yeah, it's written, and it's quite nice. I still have some this little package. Not package, like small application for downloading some stuff and zipping them together. But it's
really, yeah, right.
Yeah. I mean, it's working kind of nice. I mean, and it also forces you to learn. At least for me, it forced me to learn TypeScript because this kind of the only way how you can use it. So I'm not sure if you can write.
You can totally write normal JavaScript in there.
I'm not sure.
Just call the files .js and it should be fine with that.
I mean, probably yes. I mean, but I kind of didn't have time to anything else. I played like last month. I played with Strapi, which is kind of based on. I think it's Node.js.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah, I think it's based on Node.js, like this backend framework, and it's really nice. I mean the community for the Strapi is really good, and like it's growing also. And basically, I mean, you don't have like this kind of environment as like, I don't know, WordPress has, right? But like you don't have so much plugins, but for like the basic application, it's really good, and as it's kind of, it's really easy to kind of modify it for your needs. It kind of has like, in some ways it has kind of like Ruby on Rails feel. So you can just write modify your models and like controllers and this kind of stuff. So you can do lots of stuff there. But like if you install it like from the scratch, it's working like immediately, and you don't need to set up anything like special. And as I use it for like Gridsom frontend, so it has also the Strapi has like the like the normal API, like the REST API, but also like GraphQL API. So you can use it like, it's really easy to use it with the Gridsom or like Next or so.
Nice. Yeah, I want to have a look at Strapi, but I want to have a look at so many.
Yeah. So
do you always use TypeScript on your project? Should I learn it as a Vue Junior developer? That is a tough question. So
Stay away from it.
I think that is a very opinionated answer. So I think TypeScript is worth learning, but you don't have to. So have a look at it if you have interest. And I think you can learn something, especially if you are not, if you didn't program anything else yet. So if you don't come from a C or whatever language, kind of Java, whatever background, then TypeScript might be a bit strange at first, especially, but it might give you a lot of opportunity to learn. So because they have a lot of nice concepts in there, and I think that is a valuable learning.
Yeah, and in the end, you will type everywhere any, and it's fine.
Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, I heard it from the friends. So
I have seen this a lot, that people who use TypeScript, they are very open-minded about it. They would suggest it to each and everyone that if you're not using TypeScript, you're doing something really wrong, and then they just make you feel bad on Twitter and Reddit. If you're not doing TypeScript, you're just fucking your person up. I guess that's where a lot of junior developers get the idea that should we learn TypeScript or not. And is it even necessary to use in our projects when JavaScript just works fine? But I guess Vue 3 is written in TypeScript, and they have greatly improved the support for it. So
yeah,
that would be nice.
Better.
Yeah, so much better. Using TypeScript in Vue 2.6 was a nightmare, according to me. So that's why I never really used it on large project. But I guess in Vue 3, I just really improved. So when I give it a try, I'll maybe start using TypeScript for all of the projects.
Yeah. It's time for the
next. Even Vue support was lacking for TypeScript. So if you were using TypeScript, you just had to forgo Vue. And if you use that a lot, it may be bugs.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't a new thing. The idea that we would write a superset or a subset of JavaScript. It's like it's the gift that keeps the idea that keeps on giving. You know, I mean, we had CoffeeScript back in the day. There was Dart was one back in the day. There's I mean, just ASM in general, you know, which is a subset. But like, we keep trying to improve JavaScript by changing the language. And in general, it hasn't panned out. And I think the first one that's got a chance at really modifying it is TypeScript. And that's only because these big libraries are adopting it. Like, it sounds like a decision that Evan, you probably made one night when he was trying to figure out how to improve TypeScript support. And he just was like, I just got to write the thing in TypeScript. And that decision makes it something that might actually have a chance, because, you know, and the same for React. The communities that are around those are so big, it has a chance to actually normalize it. But like, Viewformulate's a great example, right? Viewformulate's written in JavaScript.
Yeah.
This is what I see as the downside. Viewformulate's written in JavaScript. If you're just your run-of-the-mill TypeScript user and you come across Viewformulate and you're like, oh, these are like dope forms, I want to use them. I can't. You know, I need all these other things in order to make that, you know, work well for my application. What you're doing is effectively like limiting or narrowing down the number of things that are acceptable on your platform, because you are taking a subset of the ecosystem. And so that to me is the big negative, is like, as a developer, you're just going to be more constrained to what you can use. But I think that will change. And this is the only time I've ever thought that. I've always like really poo-pooed all of the you know, compilers or transpilers for JavaScript in the past, because they just have not had the big, wide adoption that's required in order to make it work. And then things like Deno, you know, making it a first-class citizen, although even there, they're really struggling to get the performance up. But, you know, making TypeScript something that has a native runtime, there is hope for TypeScript. But I would say
native runtime would be awesome. But
Mateus? Yeah, I would say learn JavaScript first.
Yeah, absolutely.
All of the like, and same with Vue. Like, if you're not like pretty good with native JavaScript, I'd say postpone learning Vue and postpone learning React, which is controversial. I don't know if you guys like have seen these conversations on Twitter. A lot of people are like, it's totally cool to jump into React or Vue as a first-time developer.
I absolutely disagree.
Yeah, I disagree.
Sorry,
I think it's dangerous, and frankly, I think the reason that that has been like coming out as kind of an accepted way to do things is because that's what the boot camps and places like that churn you out.
No.
Like, they need to make you profitable within 6 months. How are you going to do that? Well, you're not. It's impossible. That's how, like, you can't go from 0 to hero in 6 months. And going from 0 to hero in 6 months using pure JavaScript, you sure as heck aren't going to be valuable. But if you tack on like React or Vue as like the deliverable at the end of the day, you might be able to contribute, right? Like, you might actually be able to contribute to some code bases if you spend 6 months learning React, even though you don't know where the edges and the boundaries are between React and JavaScript or things like that, you might be able to contribute some code. It's just not a path to being a good developer. So like you might get a good job, but at some point you've really got to learn the kind of the right way to do it.
Yeah.
It reminds me of like when Ruby on Rails was the hottest thing in the world.
Absolutely.
And
good times.
Nobody writes Ruby. Like there's approximately 0 people that write Ruby, but everybody wants to use Rails. And so people learned Ruby on Rails, and I think to this day a lot of people don't know where Ruby ends and where Rails starts.
Rob, I mean, the thing is with Ruby that it's an extra hard case here because Ruby makes it possible to change literally everything in runtime. So even like the base types and everything. So you never know what is coming from where if you don't know the packages that you loaded.
Yeah.
And Rails is loading like a bunch of them. So
yep.
That's actually my biggest criticism about Ruby. If I may just jump in, but my biggest criticism about this language is that you never know where something is coming from because it's, in my opinion, just too dynamic. You know, it's sure you have a lot of struggle if a language is very stiff, you know, or rigid in this case that you can't change things very well also. But if you can just change literally everything from everywhere, a bit like in JavaScript, but in Ruby even more so, then you never know where something is coming from, and you might get used to stuff that is actually just an extension, or it's just, you know, someone wants to change things in the core language at some point, but they can't because there were just some packages that are used out there, and so they cannot just put it. All these problems that come with this, I don't know. I don't think that it's a good idea.
Yeah, so that would be my caution to people who are learning Vue and JavaScript and all of that stuff at the same time. Is if you start by learning TypeScript, TypeScript is a superset, so it has a lot of features in it that don't exist in JavaScript. You know, decorators and whatnot. They might someday, but they don't now. And so you actually will have a harder time than when you need to just write JavaScript, which I promise you will have to do. Guaranteed.
And even like if they are doing it in a bootcamp, how does one go 6 months writing just React or Vue without actually learning a lot of JavaScript? Like you cannot really go without actually learning JavaScript. So I guess even if they start learning just the framework, they have to catch up with JavaScript at one point or the other. And this is where like a lot of frameworks like Azure and Beautify make things hard for them because they are basically removing the JavaScript portion of the framework, and you just have to use these components that are pre-built, maybe style them with CSS, and you're good to go. And then when your app blows up, you have slow performance, you don't know what's breaking, you don't know how to debug. That becomes an interesting experience.
Yeah, it's an interesting point.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you do see JavaScript, well, React developers that don't really know JavaScript pretty frequently, particularly in, like, I think in React, maybe even more than Vue, which I don't want that to sound unfair, but just the way that it mixes JSX into JavaScript makes it feel, I don't know, it's not like everything inside the script block in Vue is just JavaScript. Yeah. There's actually nothing special in there. In React, there's actually a lot of special sauce happening. I mean, even hooks, like the concept of hooks is really, you know, there's magic happening there. You know, based on the call order and stuff like that, which is not, it technically is JavaScript, but is, you know, is such a special set of it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's also my problem.
Even the way you write CSS and JSX, that also like really doesn't make sense. So people who are learning just React, they don't really know CSS that well as well, and so you end up with not knowing CSS, not knowing JavaScript, but you have a job and you are a developer, so that's kind of nice.
It is nice. hey, I'm not against anybody going and getting a job. Good, like, go get a job. Good for you, especially now. Go get yourself a job.
but
you will learn on the job.
Yeah. But then you have to spend years and years working on the same job, and then you someday decide on learning JavaScript again, and you have to start from scratch anyway. So you sort of lose a lot of valuable experience that you would have gained more from if you had known basic CSS and JavaScript from the beginning. So
maybe that's where some of the partisanship in French, does that word translate well? Do you guys know partisanship? Like everybody taking their sides. There's a lot of that, and like I actually don't feel that strongly about it. Like I really like Vue, but if I had to use React every day, okay, like it would be okay. Like I'm not happy about it, but it's just JavaScript. You know?
Yeah.
But I think if you're like born and raised on React and that's all you know, and somebody tells you got to go use something else, now you're an angry person, you know.
Yeah, my problem with using React would be sometimes, really, only sometimes. Okay, but my biggest problem with using React would be that they tend to put, as you already said, they tend to put everything into JavaScript, like CSS and HTML and everything with JSX. Everything is kind of somehow translated and retranslated and transpiled and whatever from something into JavaScript into whatever it will be in the end in the browser. And I find this a really, really weird thing because first of all, I think it was a very good idea to have this separation of concerns in 3 languages, you know, and have one language for styling, markup, and logic. And they just break this whole idea. And then I also think it breaks a lot of ideas, you know, especially to new developers who jump into this React world and learn all the React stuff and think React is the holy grail. Let's come back to that one. And then they don't really understand the ideas behind all those languages and wonder why they have to do this style module stuff and so on. And that I think it just narrows down also their possibilities to not only learning, but also to understanding problems or to approaching problems.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my biggest criticism with React is Facebook.
Oh, yeah, fair enough.
Well, I mean, I'm actually worried, like I'm more confident that Evan and the open source community will keep you going than I am React. Like what is React to Facebook? It's just, I mean, it's important to them, but like they could drop it tomorrow. Google has done.
If they find something new, then they would just dump it immediately. Yeah,
boom, it's out of here. It's such a small thing for them, and so building my entire life on it is a little bit, you know, it's a little bit scary.
Which is also funny because most people say the opposite, right? They say, "Oh, but there's Facebook behind it, so how awesome is that, right?"
Yeah, I don't care. I am curious though. I think in America, React is very dominant, very, very dominant. I'd say the Vue usage is quite low compared to React usage for developers. But my sense is this is not true. This is not the same around the world. You know, even in Vue Formulate, when I look at like where users are coming from, it's everywhere in the world. Incredibly diverse community, incredibly diverse. What is you guys who are not in the United States, what is your, like, why were you attracted to Vue as opposed to React? Why are all of the Americans going for React? I don't understand. Help me understand.
Vue is really popular in Asia though. Like a lot of Chinese, and if you move to Southeast Asia, practically everyone is using Vue. So you see a lot of people coming up with a lot of job hosting in Philippines and the lower part of the Asia. So that's really great. It's mostly because of Evan and his presence in China, and people basically treat him as a god over there. So that's really great, and that works for him. It's really true. So but still I feel that as far as India is concerned, there's a lot of React usage. somewhat similar to US. And one of the reasons for that is because a lot of businesses are maybe outsourcing their stuff to the US and they are using React, so they end up using React as well. Otherwise, a lot of companies that are in the US have their offices in India. So you have Amazon, Facebook, Google, and Atlassian, and a lot of big companies that are using React, and they have thousands of employees, tens of thousands of employees in India, and they move companies, so they end up using React as well. So a lot of billion-dollar startups that we have here in India, they're using React for the primary reason because one of their co-founder was working in a FANG company, and they were using React there, so they ended up using it here as well. And that is, that is pretty much why everyone is using React everywhere, according to me.
Yeah, the Vue, why Vue.js is so strong in China, of course, even has like a Chinese roots is the word.
Yeah.
But it's also that there was right from the beginning Chinese documentation in Vue.js, which is not the case for most of the frameworks, especially for the bigger ones, because they're all just English and they're just settled, right? They said, like, we have English documentation, everyone will understand. And that's a very unrealistic approach, of course. So that helped a lot. Yeah, this whole Godhood thing is another one by now. But I think in Germany, it's pretty much the same as in the US. React is very strong, or you find Angular 2 or like 5 or 6 or whatever they have by now, but this not AngularJS, because people just do large business, corporate, blah, blah, blah.
So React is it's a false perception of mine that Vue is more popular in the rest of the world. It's just that the rest of the world is really big.
I mean, China is pretty big, right? So.
Yeah. I guess most of the stars come from China because even though Vue has a lot more stars than React, we don't really see a lot of job opportunities opening up for Vue, or even contracts opening up for Vue. But if you're working with Vue, like I have been for the past 3 years, you get that sort of exclusivity that if this guy has been working for so long, he knows what he has to do. And you don't really have to fight a lot for contracts and jobs when you're working with Vue. So you get that exclusivity. But it's two-way. There are less jobs and less stuff. I guess Apple started using Vue as well. And they are doing the media portion of their company. I guess one of their advertisements were with Vue. So yeah, Apple is really pushing Vue.
That's pretty cool. It'd be great to get one of those big companies to adopt Vue.
I mean, companies like GitLab and so on are using Vue as well, right? And lots of like medium to already biggish companies are using Vue.js. So I think it's really, really coming strong.
Yeah.
I worked on a project with Volkswagen. We used Vue over there. It was through an agency, so I was subcontracting. But like it was really cool. It was mostly because it was a request for proposal, so we were building that stuff out for them. But it got shortly dropped off because of COVID, so it's on pause now. But when we were building that, so we had the whole control over the project. So we were using Vue and Tailwind over there. It was going really well. So yeah, big companies are pitching for Vue as well.
Yeah. It was the same. Like for example, as I know in Czech Republic, it's because it's really based like there is lots of like PHP developers there. Like this was most like the only programming language in the past. Then lots of people are going from like combination Laravel with Vue.js right now because it's like the most hype thing. And you have like really pretty big base of PHP developers. So if they are going to Laravel, it's automatically because I think they are using it like the default.
Yeah,
exactly. So that was definitely a huge push for Vue.js when Laravel decided to make Vue.js.
That is how Vue blew up in the starting. And one of the downsides of like this is when people are looking for Vue developers, they're looking for someone who has experience with Laravel as well. And I don't, and that works against me.
Well, that's too bad because I'm really not a fan of PHP.
So I never worked with PHP. I have been a JavaScript guy, so really sucks.
Yeah, Yeah. Okay.
And the way Laravel works is that if you're using Laravel, I guess you have to do everything the Laravel way. They don't use Webpack, so you have Laravel mix for bundling the packages, and then you write Vue within the context of Laravel. So maybe I don't know. I haven't really used that, but it didn't really struck us very interesting to me.
I've used Laravel plenty, and what I do when I start a Laravel project is I take Laravel mix and I throw it in the trash can.
It's the same as I would do with Ruby on Rails, with this whole turbo links and whatever they have there. All this just like, because we can do better.
Yeah, I don't think anybody likes PHP, but people like Laravel. I say what wrote a really good framework. So
fair enough.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we will slowly wrap it up, I guess. Just like for the last like couple minutes, what's your currently like favorite TV show?
Oh, what a jump!
Just you. What you are watching right now?
I watched Dracula, I guess last month. That was really nice. And then I sort of hit a repeat on The Office. The Office always cracks me up. And then maybe, mostly Office, How I Met Your Mother, and South Park sometimes. Silicon Valley was really good. It came to an end though.
Yeah. It's for me. It's really weird. Like everyone is telling like that, like if they are watching Netflix and like chilling and everything, but I actually didn't have time to do anything. But yeah. I mean, but
I did For All Mankind, which is on Apple Plus.
Yeah.
And I've like not heard anybody talk about it, but it's pretty interesting. It's the moon landing in 1969, but the Soviets landed instead of the Americans.
Yeah.
And so
I heard of that one. Yeah.
It's an interesting idea because, like, what would have actually happened, and what would have probably actually happened is the space race wouldn't have ended, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like, the Russians had already beat the Americans so many times with so many firsts going into space, and they just kept being like, well, we'll make the goal over there, we'll make the goal over there. And so
exactly.
If it landed, then it's like, okay, well, now we'll beat you at whatever the next thing is. And so it's basically just like, what would have happened if the space race hadn't ended?
Yeah,
pretty much.
Nice, actually, yeah.
It's
true.
I watch on Apple TV Plus the Mythic Quest TV show. It's really nice. I mean, it's really kind of a specific humor, but I think I watched it like twice, the whole season. Like I think it's like 10 episodes, and you need to kind of, I don't know, grow it inside you, because it's like it's really specific.
Mythic West?
What?
Mythic West?
Mythic Quest, yeah.
Mythic Quest.
Mythic West.
Yeah.
I think I know what you're talking about.
It's on Apple TV Plus. It's still one of the. Yeah. So it's.
Yeah.
It's really nice, and
I actually bought Apple TV Plus, but I never really used that because most of the movies and shows that I searched for, you have to pay extra for them. I guess after the subscription as well. So that really didn't work for me. And apart from the shows, mainstream shows, the shows that they had weren't really interesting. So that's why I didn't use them.
Yeah.
But what is it called again? Meeting West?
Yeah, Mythic Quest. Yeah, it's like about the game development company.
Okay, Mythic West.
Yeah. I mean, I last year I bought iPhone 11, so I get the 1 year subscription for free from someone like so, yeah.
Okay, this is cool.
Yeah, I mean,
The only not ever person here, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, as you mentioned, this was the two mankind, yeah.
For all mankind, yeah.
Yeah, for mankind. On the Netflix, there is the Space Force. Did you saw that? Did you see it?
Yeah, I watched that.
That's.
My ridiculous meter just exploded when I just saw the title, so I didn't watch it.
Yeah, but it's really.
I don't know.
It's kind of funny.
It was a terrible show, but I loved it.
Yeah. It's terrible, but yeah, it's like
it was like they were trying to recreate the Office dynamic.
Yeah.
And totally failed.
Yeah.
It completely failed, and so it's actually just embarrassing the whole way through. But it's kind of funny because of that.
And yeah, because of this, totally awesome. Yeah, exactly.
I actually started watching Midnight Gospels. I think it's called in English.
Yeah. It's on Netflix also, right?
Yes, it's on Netflix, and it's
the podcast thing.
Strange. Exactly, it's like a podcast.
It's really weird.
But in comic form.
Yeah, it's pretty. I saw that. I saw like three episodes, and it's weird, but like
weird is the right word, definitely.
But awesome.
It's great somehow. Yeah. So it's a bit. It's not easy going. So.
You need to focus on that. It's really because
exactly.
Lots of things are happening, and it's like, lots of transformation.
So you see the strangest things, like in picture, you see the strangest things, but on the same side they talk about like life and drugs and people opinions and God and Jesus. That's I think the second episode. Stuff like this. Why are they just mashed to lumps and stuff? And it's weird. It's really strange, but it's totally worth it in my opinion.
Yeah. I agree. I think guys, we can wrap it up for today.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Justin.
Nice to talk to you guys.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Get some sleep, everybody.
Yeah. Have a good night.
It's really great talking to you.
Or evening or afternoon. I don't know.
Depending on where you are. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, guys.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Yeah.